Welcome back for another book talk video. It's Writer Wednesday, and today I'm not going to do a bonus talk video or a bonus tag. I'm actually going to do a writer's talk. I want to give a writer's reflection, which is just my own personal opinion, really truly, on the 2020 Goodreads best book winners, just thinking about what it is that stands out about these books, makes them interesting. And I'm going to look at 8 categories. The nonfiction winner, Stamped by Jason Reynolds and Ibram X. Kendi, as well as the winners for horror, Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia, science fiction, To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini, romance, From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout, fantasy, Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood, or House of Earth and Blood, Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas, historical fiction, The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, mystery and thriller, The Guest List by Lucy Foley, and the overall literary fiction category, which was won by The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Starting with Stamped, I actually read that this summer. We had the riots going on, we had civil unrest in our nation, the pandemic had everyone really freaked out. I say everyone, I guess a lot of people. Probably not fair to say everyone. But man, this was a needed book. I would say if you're going to write nonfiction, certainly you want it to be relevant. If it's not obvious why it's relevant, the so what or the why is this important should be explained easily at the beginning of the book in some sort of introduction or forward or preface or something. But I don't think I need to say much about this book because as far as nonfiction goes, this was a 5 out of 5 stars. Definitely relevant, making a huge difference. It was so popular this summer that it was actually sold out. I had to wait at least a week or so before they could get it to me. With nonfiction, my thought is do something unique, do something that fits your style, but make sure it's relevant, something that people can care about. All right, I'll just keep going up from the bottom. I would say in no particular order, but I'm starting at the bottom and going up to build up to the literary fiction one. Mexican Gothic, the winner of the horror category, stood out to me as a horror book because it did something different. It does have that psychological suspense build up, and then you get some extremely creepy, weird scenes that build into some serious action at the end. For that, I would say if you're doing horror and you want to stand out and be considered one of the best books of the year, that sort of thing, probably you need to make sure you're not just copying what other people have done before, not just imitating the greats, but you put your own spin on it. And I don't want to give away spoilers, but this is different from what you get in a lot of horror. For Christopher Paolini's book, To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, to me, he took ingredients from comic book stories and movies and different elements and just mix them together in a new way. He also has that spectacularly beautiful cover on the front of the book with the shiny blue and the stars. Definitely, you want to put a new twist on an old thing, if at all possible. And there are a lot of weird covers now in science fiction and fantasy, so you want to make sure that yours is really going to get people's attention. From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout is a romance book, though it's a fantasy, so it's a fantasy romance. It's a fantasy that won the romance category, and I think that says a lot. It's not graphic in its depictions of sex. It doesn't have just random sex scenes all over the place like a lot of romance books tend to do. It's very artistic. The sex scenes are earned for the story and the characters and how it all develops, and honestly, they're barely there. It's one of those romances that builds through the story and has its own twists and turns with the plot. I assume that people enjoyed the way that played out. It's also obviously the first book in a series, though, and I don't know what to think about that. I guess depending on your genre and audience expectations, some people are okay with a cliffhanger in the first book of a series and it obviously being built up and set up for the rest of it. For the fantasy category, Sarah J. Maas's book is really a romance that's taking place in a fantasy world. And here I would say, I guess, sex sells. It worked. It's also name recognition. Sarah J. Maas being a very popular author, having written a lot of other fantasy romance romance books in the past. And as a writer, I have to say something that I have a problem with is I have not been getting my books out there. I want to continue revising my manuscripts and not considering them finished and putting them out there. And you're never going to get name recognition if you're just holding on to your drafts like I'm doing. You've got to publish. And it might be 3 books or 5 books or a dozen books or 20 books to get you that name recognition that will help you out with your career to really strike it big and be at that kind of level. Note to myself, as well as to plenty of other people out there, stop just clinging to those drafts. Get them polished, get them out there, get them published. We've then got the historical fiction category with The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. I love literature with twins in it, the way that you can see how one simple life decision can cause a character's life to be so very different from another one. But also, you're dealing with important issues here with racism and sexism in different generations, to where it's that kind of literature that you can find a lot of themes in it, a lot that people can identify with. And I think that's important for success for your writing. If you have just one theme, one issue that you're dealing with, it's a lot less likely that people are going to want to read your book, pushing it up there in votes and viewing it as one of the best. We then get to mystery and thriller. Lucy Foley does something different in her books. This is the guest list. Instead of having a murder mystery where a dead body is found at the beginning of the book and you have an investigating character, 90% of her book is the audience wondering who's going to get murdered. You don't even know. You know there will be a murder, but the book is a bunch of flashbacks from different characters' points of view, alternating from chapter to chapter, which is always a fun technique with point of view jumping around. Though I'm not a huge fan of books being mostly flashback, apparently a lot of people like that, building up to finding out the identity of the dead body. And then in the end, there wasn't even really an investigation. You as the reader know who the killer was because you're getting the first person point of views for the different chapters, and one of those is the murderer. So that's interesting. By doing something different, changing the formula up, the book stands out. And then that brings us to the literary fiction category, one by The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This author took the idea from a film, It's a Wonderful Life, and changed it up, put it in a setting that would be happening today, using today's technology with cell phones and all of that, and changing it. Instead of a male protagonist, you have a female protagonist, and making it feel kind of like a mix of It's a Wonderful Life and Quantum Leap. Very fascinating how that's done. It also helps that some covers of the book look a lot like the TARDIS from Doctor Who. So I feel like the author has been able to borrow from enough different places that it works. Though I personally only gave it 3 out of 5 stars. That's true most of these books. Most of these books were just about 3-star reads, a couple of them 4-star reads for me, because I'm not necessarily, in my mind, aligned with what the generic Goodreads reader is for what is most popular. And that's perfectly fine, because different people are going to like different kind of books on different levels. Overall, when you take a look at these winners, I feel inspiration for writing would be go find some old movies or TV shows, think about the concepts and the themes of them and how you could not steal it directly, but borrow the concepts and put it in a different genre, put it a different way, put a new twist on it so that you could sell it. It's a good pitch to be able to say this is like that, but in this different way. So where The Midnight Library is like It's a Wonderful Life, but as a multiverse quantum leap kind of story. And I think that will also help you to get an agent and potentially to sell your book to publishers and all of that. But who knows? Ultimately, as always, the best writing advice is to write what you want to write for yourself, your own enjoyment, and hope that will line up with what people want to read. At least hopefully some people will want to read your work. You don't want to just modify your writing for what is selling in the market. Though it's good to know. It's good to have that knowledge in your brain of what is selling, what is popular, what do people like. That's my writer's reflection for today. All right, every day is a good day for a book talk or writer's reflection. Peace.